guys, welcome back to the channel. I am today looking in on the Lavender Metheglin. So, I'm going to take a hydrometer reading because with this one, unlike any other that I've done before, I want to stop this at a certain point that it's still got plenty of sugars in so that it remains sweet and I don't have to add more honey. So we're going to take a hydrometer reading to see where it is, and if it's about where I want it, I'm going to add some stoppers to stop the fermentation and leaving behind that sweetness. It will save me money because I won't have to add more honey all the time, which is what I tend to have to do a lot. And it's still visibly active. You can still see it going away and whatnot. And it's still bubbling in here as well. Going for it. Which probably isn't going to give a very accurate reading. So it's only at 30 now. 1.030. So probably going to wait another 4 days and check it again. And I almost forgot to taste it. Just a small taste because it's still fermenting. It's very cloudy, which means there's yeast in there, so we don't want that. And this has been sterilised so that can go back in there as gently as possible. And the taste, like I say, that's at 30, so it's going to be very sweet still. That wasn't all that sweet, so I'm not sure whether it's giving an inaccurate reading. I'm gonna have to ponder what to do now. Whether to add the stoppers and just go with it, because it tastes nice. Let's ponder. Right, so I've pondered. I've had another taste of it. It tastes nice, to be fair. It doesn't taste as sweet as the hydrometer seems to think that it is. So it might be because of the rising bubbles could be giving it a false reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rack it off today. I'm going to add some stoppers and try and maintain the sweetness that it's got. Let it clear and then bottle it. But in between that, I'm going to be adding the dried lavender, which I took from my garden a while back. Bit of lavender. I'm going to put that in and that'll add to the flavour even more so. The lavender honey itself has a nice flavour to it, but I actually want that intense lavenderness in there. Lavenderness? Is that even a bloody word? Right, so yeah, I'm going to get these stoppers in, rack it off, get the stoppers in, put it into a clean demijohn. I'm going to have to clean this one out because I've got no spares at the moment. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Right, so this step is the stopping of the fermentation. I'm going to use 1 Campton tablet and 1 potassium sorbate fermentation stabilizer, it says, or stopper, sorry. So you have to crush the Campton tablet nice and fine. Crushing it, crushing it, crushing it. And like so. And then, well, I did have some measuring spoons somewhere, but I can't find them, so that's that. Half of a teaspoon per gallon. That's about a gallon. Half a teaspoon of this. Righty-ho. I then am going to add that to the vessel it's going in so that it mixes as it goes. Simples, yeah. We'll have to mix that in after, of course, but for now we don't need to. We have got the cap on the bottom here to try not to get that yeast and stuff as we go. And that's a going. Now I'm going to speed this bit up because it's boring. So that's the mead racked off now. We're going to stir in and try and dissolve the stoppers into it now. We've removed it from the majority of the yeast. There'll still be some suspended, so we're just trying to stop that yeast from fermenting now. Any more sugars. I've cleaned the demijohn out. It's ready for this to go back into it. Normally I just use another one, but I haven't got any clean at the moment, which is nice. So yeah, stir this in. At the same time, it helps release any carbon dioxide that's in there from the fermentation. Now there's tons of tiny little bubbles coming up, so I still think it's got quite an active fermentation going. But in order to keep the sweetness that it has, I do need it to stop. Otherwise we'll just have to end up putting more honey in. And the lavender honey was actually the most expensive honey that I bought. But I'm glad I used lavender honey as well at the same time. Right. So that'll be ready in a couple of minutes, and then we'll rack it back into that with the lavender. So I was pondering what to do with the lavender, and I don't want it floating around in there because it just genuinely makes life harder. So I've sterilised this muslin bag, and I'm going to put it in there, stuff it in there, and then figure out a way of getting it out after. Sounds great, doesn't it? So it's just going to be contained in this muslin thing. I'm dropping the lavender on the floor now. And that's in there. So then when we do come to rack this off, we don't have to worry about there being tons of tiny little bits of lavender floating around in it, because that would really annoy me, and it'd take longer for it to condition as well. But that's in there. It can move around freely if we just spread it out a little bit and put it in there. I mean, it should be pretty easy to get out, to be honest. And then we rack in there like so. I'm just going to get some clean water for the air trap. Well then, now we rack. Right, so it's now officially in secondary, which is like the conditioning stage. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a stir in, just so the lavender gets all over the place. Because ideally we do want it to be fully flavoured, so to speak. Got the stoppers in there, got the lavender in there. Now we put the airlock back on and we wait. Eventually the fermentation will stop and we will let it just chillax, just settle out, clear, and then yeah, get ready to bottle. Fast forward, 8 days has passed. We're now going to remove the dried lavender, which won't be dried anymore. And while we are doing that, the other stuff is sterilising that I'm going to need, because we're going to be racking this off all of this massive layer of lees that's at the bottom there, to hopefully allow it to just clear out. It started clearing already, so I don't really want to agitate it too much. I just want to take this out for now. Got the rest of the equipment all sterilised, ready to rock and roll. Now we're going to rack this off, being extremely careful, or as careful as can be, not to grab any of this lees, because that will just slow down the whole conditioning process, where it starts to just clear out and ready for bottling. This has still got a while to go. It is clearing, and it's even been clearing when the lavender's been in there, so that's a good thing. I'm going to speed this up because it's boring. So it's now racked off. The stoppers are already in it. The lavender's been taken out. All that's left now is to have a hydrometer test to see where the fermentation was at, to give us an idea of what percentage of alcohol we've got. I mean, it's already quite clear, to be honest. I'm actually quite happy with that. Probably see. It's actually quite clear. So it should clear out really quickly. I'm hoping it's not as high as the reading was when I did it last, because it said that it was at like 30, which would mean it was quite a lot of sugars left. It's still saying, even though now the fermentation stopped, it's still saying it's around that mark. It is, it's saying it's exactly the same as it was. So even with the bubbles from the fermentation, it still gave an accurate representation of what the thing was. That's peculiar, because I could have sworn that it had been less, because of the lack of sweetness. Smells nice. Looks okay. It's a bit hazy at the moment, but looks alright. That's damn good. It is very sweet, actually. Maybe it was because the fermentation was going off. I didn't realise it was that sweet. But the lavender kind of takes your mind off the sweetness. I mean, 30, that's like, you know, extremely sweet. But that's not bad. Not bad for my first Metheglin, whichever. Pick one. Pick the one you think's right. Okay. So we do still have some bubbles surfacing, but that might be because I've just put that in there. Tastes good. The lavender honey itself was really, really nice, even on its own, without the dried lavender. The dried lavender has added a layer on top of that, which has now allowed what I didn't want to be super sweet, kind of ballsed up there and thought that the reading I took last time was wrong, because it was still fermenting even when in here, so the bubbles were coming up. I thought it was giving a false reading, but it wasn't, because it's still exactly the same as it was when I took that hydrometer test. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rack this back off into a demijohn, and we're just going to close it back up again, let it settle out, and then bottle it. Bada bom, bada bing, easy peasy. Just go get all the other bits and bobs. All that's left to do now is siphon this back off into the clean demijohn. Now all of the lees at the bottom has been taken out. This can just sit somewhere, maybe somewhere cool, or just in here. Normally I just leave them in here. I'm not really bothered about them being in sunlight, to be fair. I've never really noticed any issues with them or like that. They all taste pretty good. Yeah, so I'll speed this bit up. And there you go. I've added this part of it onto this video because I hadn't already uploaded the other video and I didn't really do a great deal of the other one, so I've just gelled them together. So if I've repeated myself, I apologise, but that's that for now. Let it clear out and then we'll bottle it.